Hello and welcome to my channel. Hi, I'm Wendy J. Haney. Today, I'm going to show you how to make this Woven Star Quilt Block. Yep, I think it's pretty cool. It kind of looks like, well, woven interweaved fabric. If you do a search on Woven Star, you're going to find a lot of different blocks that they name the same thing. So there's another one out there that, I just might need to do it because I think it's kind of cool. I love the geometric look of things. Okay, so with this one, we are going to be creating a 12-inch finished block. So that means this is 12 and a half. And because it's essentially 1, 2, 3, 4 rows by 4 rows, that means each of these is 3.5-inch squares that you're going to be working with. And we have flying geese in here that are then going to be 3.5 by 6.5 inch unfinished. Okay, and then we've got our cute split quarter square triangles here in the middle. And I did a video on that last month and showed you multiple ways to do it. So if you didn't catch that one, you're gonna learn how to do it today with, in this case, we need a variety of combinations with 4 different fabrics. Okay, we are working with a background fabric. So we've got our squares and our flying geese. And then the rest of it is 4 different fabric colors. So what you're going to need is, of your background fabric, you're going to need 4 3.5-inch squares for your corners. And then your flying geese, you need 4 3.5 by 6.5 inch. Now, if you struggle with your flying geese and they're never quite right, you might want to bump this up by 1/4 of an inch. And if that's the case, it would be 3 3/4 by 6 3/4. And in the description of this video, you can request a template that shows the colors for this, kind of a coloring sheet, and then I'll give you the measurements for the fabric and for the flying geese, whether you want to do trim up method or not. Later in the video, I'll probably tack it on to the end, or maybe just do a custom video that I'll put a link here that shows you how to trim it up if you do an oversized flying geese. Okay. So we're not doing oversized in this video. So these are 6.5 by 3.5. Okay, there's your background fabric. For your flying geese also, you're going to need 2 3.5-inch squares of each of your 4 colors for your flying geese. Okay, and then for your middle, for your split square triangles, split quarter square triangles. Oh, my last video, I didn't get that right through the whole doggone thing. Your split quarter square triangles, we need 4 different fabrics, and all of them you're going to cut 4.5-inch square, so that from there we can get all of our unique combinations of our split quarter square triangles here in the middle. Okay, let's get started. For your flying geese, I would highly suggest you do a little bit of coloring in the template that you're probably going to be requesting below, because what we're going to do is we had you get 2 each of your colors. And so as you can see here, your flying geese are made of 2 different colors. Each one of them is a different combination. So it's going to be very important for you to lay this out. This is what's most critical about this block, is having it laid out so your colors match well. So your colors match up where they're supposed to, because you're going to be very unhappy if they don't. So what I discovered is that if we lay things out the way we need and then mark and go from there, that'll work good. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. So let's lay out, we're going to just do this. This is what I did. And then I am looking at, see if I can get this all on here at one time. Close. Actually, yeah, we're close enough. I take a look at what I want, and then I'm putting my blocks, my colors, where they need to be. So that goes there. Okay, so now we've got them laid out. Now the key thing is when you mark these and put them on here, this inside is where your point is going to be, okay? Then you're going to take each of your squares, your 3.5-inch squares, and you are going to mark them corner to corner. Hopefully this one shows well. Not too bad. You're going to do that for each of them, and then put them back on here so that as you mark them, the angle, whoops, that slipped. I'm rotating between a white marker and my pencil, depending on the fabric. So as I mark them, I put them back on here. And you could actually mark all of them corner to corner, and then you bring them back here, and making sure as you place them on your flying geese, you keep the angles right so that your point is going to be in the middle. Because if you accidentally put them like this, you're not going to get your colors where you need them to be. Okay, so I'm going to go mark all of mine. Here's the other thing is, these are pretty decent size flying geese. And when you do it, you're going to sew on the line. And then you're going to lop off all of this. You could go deal with those triangles later if you want. I don't like dealing with triangles. It's just that simple. So what I do is, you know what? I'm gonna do it on my pink because you'll see it better on my pink with my white marker. I mark my middle, like you're gonna do, and then I do another line that is 1/2 inch away. Yep, 1/2 inch. That way, when I do my flying geese, and then you got to make sure when you put that on there, your second line is on the outside, not on the inside. So I'm going to sew on this line, and then I'm going to sew on that line. So that way, when I cut in between to lop off this edge, I have an extra half square triangle. Okay, so let me mark one more of these, and then I'll show you how to do that without doing a video edit cut for my dear hubby. Okay, like I said, I want to do my, this ruler's a little harder to see my 1/2 inch. Okay, so now I have my flying geese the way I want it. I've got my 2 lines marked. My second line is on the outside. What you're going to do is set this one aside. And what I usually do is just put it where it's supposed to be. Then you're going to put right sides together. And I apologize. Once again, I'm using batiks. Through this whole project, you're doing right sides together with your fabric. And I know you can't see that with my batiks, but I dug these batiks out of my stash. I had a couple fat quarters that I thought looked fabulous together. So then right sides together, and then I find it really, really helpful to pin it so it doesn't get shifted, because there is no trimming with these flying geese. Yep, so you're gonna need to be accurate with these to have them turn out right. You're gonna do this and then sew on your lines that you made, corner to corner. What I have a tendency to do is, that I find helps my accuracy, is I put it through this way, and I've discovered that on my foot, that when I'm doing it on the line, the mark on my foot is fairly significant width, if you think about it, if you look about it, and there's a picture here that shows you that. So what I do is going down this way, where this is the side I'm cutting off, I put the left edge of my center line of my foot on that line, which means my needle is, well, pretty dang close to that line or a little bit on the outside. That compensates for the width of the line, and when you fold it over, it gives me a little bit better accuracy. So something to think about, play with if you continue to fight with your flying geese not quite turning out the way you'd like. Or add a 1/4 inch to both sides and trim her up. Okay, I am going to do that, and what I do is I'm going to mark all of them, and I'm going to take 4 of them to the sewing machine all at once and get those done. Okay, I got on a little bit of a roll, so got ahead of myself, but here's the gist of it. So after you sew your lines, in this case I was stitching on 2, but you're going to have your 1 line corner to corner on 4 of your flying geese, and then cut a 1/4 inch away. For me, because I added the second line, I'm going to end up with this nice little half square triangle hanging off the end. So we're going to set those aside, and then this you're going to press. It's very important for you to take each one of them that you've done and press them open. Right now I'm just going to finger press. It's funny, I ended up grabbing 4 of them with 2 colors. Okay, so now I need to put them put them back where they're supposed to be to make sure we get everything lined up again. And once again, I am looking at my coloring template, my first block I did, so that I get these right, because this is important. Then you're going to put your other squares that you have marked on top. Like I said, it's very important that you press this. Now, I would suggest you actually open this up and press it and make sure that, okay, does this look like I've kind of got it on there straight before you lop off the other side. In fact, yeah, so I would do that. And then you put these on top, and you're going to go do the exact same thing. Stitch on the line, making sure you're getting your point up here to match with your other fabric. So we now have our flying geese. And this time I did not get ahead of myself. So I'm going to show you, though it's pretty straightforward. You take each of them, and this I stitched my 2 lines. And what I recommended, actually what I said before, is I would recommend you do this. Open it up at each point that you do it, open it up and press it before you lop anything off. And then get a ruler out and go, okay, how am I? Oh, we is nice on that one. I finally figured these out. This should be 3.5 by 6.5. You are not trimming anything. Therefore, if you open it up and press it, you know that it's good before you lop off the corners. Because if it's not, you still have the opportunity to correct it. Take out your stitches, because if this is Kitty Wampus funny, yeah, you're going to want to redo it. In this case, mine is good there, so we're going to just, sometimes I just use the scissors, and sometimes I use my rotary cutter. Okay, so you're going to do this on each of those flying geese, and then press it with the iron so you're nice and good with those. And look, I got another half square triangle. Okay, so we're going to have all of those done. Then, set those over there. You're going to grab your 4.5 inch squares of your other fabric. And what we're going to do to make your split 1/4 square triangles is, if you'll notice in our sample here, you have 4 of them. And each color here is going to be one of your larger triangles in your square. And then you need the others kind of rotated for your quarter square portion. So what you're going to do with each of these 4.5-inch squares, and in the template below, I will have documentation on what size, if you want to do a different size block. So we're going to cut each of our 4.5-inch squares in half, okay? Then set one of those aside and take the other one and cut it in half also. Okay? There we go. So you know what? We're going to make my dear hubby's life a little easier. We're going to just do this. What I do is when I do this second cut, get your ruler at the bottom here so you get a straight cut on your little triangles. Okay, last one. And just like we did with our flying geese, is in order to get these right, it's really important that you understand the layout. So if we look at our design here, it's important that things get laid out right. Well, actually, we're gonna probably need our flying geese in the picture here. So we're gonna put our flying geese where they're supposed to be. And if you have a colored template, you can use that. Whoops. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Nope, I'm good. I'm good. Okay, we're gonna lay that out. So I just kind of put that out here, and then I get my template, and I know I need an orange there to match with that, and I need a teal there to match with that, and my green goes over here. And as you can see, we're also just a little bit in a spoke situation, okay? Goes in a circle here, where we're matching things up. Then our green goes there, and it goes here. Our orange. So as you can see, you just need to get this laid out. There we go. Okay, so I've got my teal, my pink, my orange. It should look, you know, I think if you had it laid out a little wrong, you'd probably notice it. Okay, then what I do is I just kind of leave things there, or keep my coloring template. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put that out there away from us. Then take your little, your quarter square portions of your split quarter square triangle, and we're going to put them all together and pin them, because if you stitch this, if you take this sewing machine and don't pin it and you accidentally sew there, it's not going to be very happy because it won't be the layout you need. So I'm very careful as I put these together that I line up my bottom. Oh, and by the way, this method that I'm showing you here for your split quarter square triangles, we are going to trim things up. So what I do here is, these don't need to be 100% perfect, but I line up the square side. Whoopsie. I line up the square side, okay? And one more. Okay, so you see what I'm doing there? We're gonna take these to the sewing machine and stitch a 1/4 inch. See, this one's a little not quite perfect there, and that's okay. It won't matter because we're gonna trim them up. So now I've got my little 1/4 square triangle pairs, and okay, that's interesting. Do I have one of them flipped funny? No, because I just flipped it wrong, you know, whatever. I pinned it the other way direction. So we've got them pinned on the side we're going to sew on so they turn out right. Okay, go get that done. I have all of my 1/4 square triangles pressed, stitched, and pressed out. Okay, now we need to make sure we place them back where they're supposed to be with their coordinating large triangle. If you have a design board, this would be the perfect project to use it for. For me, I just like, okay, don't move those. Keep my coloring template over there. Okay, so I need a teal and orange over here. And I need a orange and red, and I'm guessing, yep, my green goes there and there. Okay, so now, as you can see, we've got our green, our teal, our orange, our pink. Okay, they kind of line up nicely. Now, take your 1/4 square pieces and put them on top, right sides together of your large triangle, and you're going to discover, woohoo, look at there. You do not need to match things up. Your bottom edge should be nice and straight. Put your seam of your 1/4 square triangle so it lines up with the middle there. But as you can see, we've got wiggle room because when we press this out, we're going to trim it up to a 3.5 inch square. That's what I like about this method of doing this. We just start with 4.5 inch squares and we go with it. And we trim it up. So in that case, if you're really particular, you can take your larger triangle, divide it in half and fold it, put a little crease there so you can see it, and then match the seam of your 1/4 square triangle up to that mark, and that gets it even more centered. If you can eyeball it, go with it. Once again, I'm a pinner because those pesky points. The other thing you want to do is as you're sewing these things where you've got points on the end, get your purple thing or whatever you use, a stylus, so as you're going through the sewing machine, as you get to the end here with these pesky points, that you can hang on to it, you know, and not get your fingers stuck under the foot of your sewing machine, and keeping those fabrics nice and straight and point there. Okay, so we're going to do this for all of those, and then we'll show you how to trim them up, and wow, we're going to be ready to put things together and get the block done. Okay, I have all of my split 1/4 square triangles sewn and pressed. Press them to the larger triangle. Okay, and here is how you trim it up. I like to start with the long line, and I get my Omni Grid ruler out that has a 90-degree angle on it. And we're going to trim these to 3.5 inches, which means I put my line here on my seam of my big triangle. And over here, that point there for this 1/4 square portion of it needs to be on the 3.5 mark of my ruler, because that's where we're going to square it up, and it needs to be in the corner. So just do a little sliding up, making sure you keep, and you should have plenty of room to trim here, and down here it's 3.5 there, and so I have room to trim. You know what? Let's nudge that up a tad. Okay. Okay, for that, flip it around so that your angle, so you're just moving the large triangle to the other side, so your angle, your large, is still that way, so you can still use that on your ruler. This way, this is your straight line that goes on the 3.5 mark of your ruler, or whatever the size of your unfinished block is. Your point there should be right in the corner. That should be on your seam. And there we go. All done. Okay, now that we have that, it's time to lay things out again. Do it the way I've been doing the whole video. Okay, so now we've got our things there. We're going to put our squares here for our background, and in the middle are our 4 split quarter square triangles. Okay, so that's got to be up there. Where's my pink? Uh-oh. That's not right. I'm looking at... I need to move my block. I have another colored template that... There we go. There we go. There. 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 Okay. So we got our orange and flips to there. Got our pink, got our teal, our green. Oh, nope, our green is good too. Okay, we're good. So this is how it needs to be laid out. So all we're gonna do is, first of all, let's get your middle done. Put your right sides together, making sure as you flip them that you know which side, and you can line up your seams on that large angle there. And if you do it all the way down, you're going to keep this square nice and, well, nice and square. You're not going to let it tip on you. And I always pin it so I know, got that funny, which side I'm stitching on. Okay? Be the same here. And in this case, the angle's the other direction, lining up my seam, and your seams should be pressed the opposite direction so they will nest nicely. So we're going to pin those. And you know what? Yeah. Okay, we're going to do that and get our block in the middle done. And you know what? We're going to I'm going to show you that we're going to get the square done, and then we're going to put on the sides, and then we're going to put on these. So now that you've got these ready to stitch, you might as well put those on there and those on there at the same time. Optimize yourself when you go to the sewing machine. That's what I'm all about, is pinning and making sure I have things right, because these are pretty straightforward. I'm pretty sure we know where they're going to go. So I'm going to pin these, and I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and those to the sewing machine and get them done at one time. I have my pairs of my split quarter square triangles set up, and I laid them out properly per my design here. I always kind of go back and make sure I have it laid out correctly. I did my bottom and my top, so those are ready to go when we get to that point. And I pressed to the corner squares on both of those. Now, for these, when you do this, press towards the larger triangle. So that's pressed this way, and this is pressed that way. Now, once you know you have it laid out the way it needs to be, put them together this way. The seams will be nesting. They'll be opposite of each other to eliminate some bulk. And you're going to just put those together and pin them and stitch a 1/4 inch on both sides. Yep, you're going to stitch a 1/4 inch on there, and we're going to have our center done. Now we have our square for the middle. Should have a nice little thing in the middle. Everything should match up nicely. Up to you. If it looks good, great. If not, and you feel like you need to adjust it, then do. This is quite a bit of bulk there. So what I do is I come to the back before pressing, and I just twist these seams, and you're going to get it to pop out there in the middle, and you're going to get a nice pinwheel there in the middle as I'm showing you. That will help eliminate that bulk when you press. Otherwise, if you try and press to one side, you're going to have a big wad of fabric, and your long armor not going to be happy with you. Okay, now that goes there. Yep, make sure you've got your placement right. Let's shift everything down so you can see all of it. Okay, since we took care of our top and bottom when we were at the sewing machine earlier, those rows are done. Now we just need to do this row. So, well, you guessed it. That goes on top of there, and that goes on top of there, and you stitch your 1/4 inch on either side. And there we have our middle row. Making sure our flying geese are pointing the right direction. Our colors match nicely. Yep, I think we're good. And you're never gonna guess what we're gonna do next. Okay, you probably did. Put that on there, this on there, and you're gonna have your block done. Now what I should have pointed out in the first one, here, what I like to do is, in this case, you're gonna line up your seams. So, because my top ones, I went out, these I pressed in. That eliminates a little bulk here. It's still a little bit, but you just can't pinwheel those. So it is what it is. Then, sometimes what I'll do is I'll take my pin and put it in the 1/4 inch mark of the seam and line it up with the little point of where my seam is there. That way I know that, okay, I got my 1/4 inch there. Kind of straighten this out, and then I pin that. And I keep that there. Then I come back here and I line up that. This is a lot of seams, so it might not be completely accurate, so you might need to do a little bit of easing in. Okay, then here I come over here and I get my seam matched up over there. Yep, I've got a little bit of give there. Over there. Okay, and by pinning, I can kind of, it's not, I gotta ease that in a little bit here, so we're gonna pin that some more there and there. And I'm gonna do the same on the other side. Probably have to tug it just a little. Okay, that's what I'm doing, and that helps me make sure my 3 primary points are lined up, so my seams match. Do that on that one, do that on that one, and we're gonna be done. And there we go. another Woven Star Block. Yeah, I'm really liking it. I really wish I had enough of this fabric to make 3. I have enough of everything else for 3, but I don't have enough background. Oh well. Okay, so we got those seams. Here's what I did from a pressing perspective. So these are the last seams I did. That flying geese, I ended up, pressing it towards the flying geese because I could then pinwheel the others. If you pinwheel the 4 corners, that eliminates a little bit of bulk there, and it lays nice. You're gonna have some bulk in there, no doubt about it, but not too bad. There we go. Okay, I think we're set. I am going to show you how in another video. I'm going to clip here and I'm going to get a temporary flying geese made that I'm doing larger than I need so we can trim it up, so I can show you how to trim it up. So if you're fighting with getting your flying geese done to size, where you're making your blocks and your rectangles the exact size you need, then you can use this method by adding a 1/4 inch to each of your sizes, and I will show you how to trim it up. Because the trimming up is probably the most, a little bit awkward, and if I can show you how to do that, that will help a lot. Otherwise, I think I'm going to put a backing on and a binding on, and I need something on my dresser to put a diffuser on so it doesn't get water or anything on my dresser. And I think this could be perfect. Anyway, thank you so much and take care, and thank you so much for watching.